In the shadowed hush of a Natchez sheriff's office, March 14, 1838, a gaunt woman materializes like judgment incarnate. Eyes like forsaken wells stare into eternity. "I murdered 7 souls," she intones, voice flat as grave dirt. Yet when the law writes to the gleaming columns of Fairmont Plantation, the family dines in candlelight, untouched. What divine curse has this enslaved woman summoned? The air hung heavy over Natchez in the spring of 1838, thick with the scent of blooming magnolias and the distant, rhythmic crack of whips slicing across vast cotton fields. The Mississippi River churned lazily below the bluffs, carrying steamboats laden with baled white gold cotton that had transformed this river town into one of the South's wealthiest outposts. Natchez thrived on the backs of the enslaved. Its markets at forks of the road pulsed with human auctions, where prime field hands fetched $800 or more amid booming prices. Greek Revival mansions rose like temples of hubris along the bluffs and outskirts, their white columns stark against the red earth, wide verandas catching river breezes that carried whispers of sin and excess. Inside the Adams County Sheriff's Office, a modest wooden building near the courthouse square, Henry Dalton sat alone. His deputy had ridden out to settle a boundary quarrel along the piney woods edge of town. Dalton's lunch, simple cornbread, sharp cheddar wrapped in cloth by his wife, a sliver of smoked ham, lay half-eaten on his scarred oak desk. Sunlight filtered through dusty panes, casting long shadows across ledgers stained with ink and gun oil. The room smelled of polished leather, stale tobacco, and the faint metallic tang of his revolver in the drawer. At 42, Dalton had seen hangings, brawls, thefts, and killings born of riverboat gamblers or drunken planters. He considered himself steady, a God-fearing man who read his Bible nightly and prayed for justice in a land built on bondage. The door creaked open without warning or knock. A shaft of harsh afternoon light sliced across the floorboards. There she stood, Abigail Turner. Thin to the point of fragility, as if years of labor and hidden grief had whittled her frame to bone and sinew. Her gray cotton dress, plain and mended at the hems, hung loosely, the fabric softened by countless washings in lye soap. Hair pulled back severely beneath a simple kerchief, not a strand escaped, yet it was her eyes that froze Dalton mid-bite. They were voids. Not red-rimmed with tears, not narrowed in fear or rage. Empty abysses, dark wells plunging into depths where no light reached, no soul reflected. Windows to a spirit hollowed by the sins inflicted upon her, perhaps, or by the sins she now carried. She moved with an eerie glide, feet seeming to barely disturb the dust motes dancing in the sunbeam. No hesitation. She lowered herself into the straight-backed chair opposite his desk, posture ramrod straight, hands folded neatly in her lap like a penitent in church. The air grew colder, heavier, as if her presence leached warmth from the room. "I need to confess," she said. Her voice was flat, mechanical, the tone of one reciting a psalm learned by rote rather than felt. "I've murdered 7 people." Dalton set down his cornbread slowly. His hand drifted instinctively toward the desk drawer and the cold steel within. 15 years as sheriff had hardened him, but something in her emptiness, the way her words landed without tremor or plea, sent ice threading through his veins. This was no hysterical outburst, no madwoman's rant. It carried the weight of scripture read in judgment, measured, inevitable. "Ma'am," he replied carefully, voice low, "you'd best sit easy and tell me everything." "Start with your name." "Abigail Turner." She did not blink. "House servant at Fairmont Plantation." "For 11 months, I poisoned the Fairmont family." "Marcus, the patriarch." "Catherine, his wife." "Their sons Thomas and Jonathan." "Daughter Elizabeth." "Young James, only 7. "And Sarah, Thomas's bride." 7 souls. I built the poison into their blood, their bones, their very marrow." She spoke for nearly 2 hours without pause, without visible emotion. Her words painted a tapestry of meticulous vengeance, each detail delivered like verses from a forbidden gospel. Dalton scribbled furiously, his quill scratching parchment, wrist aching, ink smudging from sweat despite the cool room. Outside, distant shouts from the riverfront drifted in stevedores, auctioneers, the low moans of chained souls awaiting sale. Inside, Abigail's confession unfolded like a slow-revealed horror. The Fairmonts commanded 300 acres of prime bottomland overlooking the Mississippi, their Greek Revival mansion a monument of white columns, broad verandas, and polished mahogany interiors that gleamed under crystal chandeliers. Marcus Fairmont, 48, a towering figure in the cotton empire, rose at dawn for strong coffee laced with 2 sugars and cream. Catherine, 45, elegant yet frail, suffered migraines and sipped herbal tea at bedtime, her skin scented with lavender water. Thomas, 29, newlywed to Sarah, pored over law books late into the night, nibbling leftovers. Jonathan, 27, favored brandy. Elizabeth, 24, delicate and bookish, took delicate bites of fruit. Little James, 7, snuck sweets from the kitchen, cookies, peach preserves, his laughter echoing through halls built on the sweat of the enslaved. Abigail knew their rhythms intimately, forged in the crucible of servitude. She had gathered the poisons in secret, pokeweed roots dug from damp woods near the river at twilight, their berries staining fingers purple like spilled blood, white snakeroot leaves harvested from shaded forest edges, harboring trematol that mimicked milk sickness with vomiting and tremors, oleander clippings from ornamental hedges, cardiac toxin subtle in small doses, water hemlock from marshy ditches, cyclotoxin promising convulsions if overdosed, autumn crocus bulbs pried from garden soil. Colchicine evoking gout or fever, occasional pinches of arsenic scraped from rat bait in the cellar, used sparingly lest doctors grow suspicious. She began with microdoses, she explained, grinding powders fine as dust, dissolving them invisibly into gravies, teas, creams, sweets. Small at first. A stomach cramp here. A headache there. Feverish sweats at night. They thought it seasonal ague, river miasma, or the doctor's mysterious inflammation. The body adapts. Tolerance builds, even as the poison weaves deeper into organs, blood, the very seat of life. Symptoms ease, they believe recovery. But the dose rises. The poison becomes them. Like sin, sheriff. It accumulates unseen until the harvest. Dalton felt bile rise. This was no frenzy of rage. This was precision, study, patience born of profound suffering. He pictured the scene she described, dawnlight filtering through kitchen windows as Abigail's calloused hands worked the mortar in pestle and shadow. The family at Sunday dinners, candle flames dancing on silverware, compliments on her herb gravy masking the bitter root within. Young James devouring peach cobbler, sticky fingers and innocent smiles. Catherine reaching for her tea, oblivious. Marcus demanding seconds, his booming voice praising the cook. Why? Dalton finally asked, voice hoarse. The word hung between them like a noose. Why 7 innocents? What could justify this? Her empty eyes flickered, just once, with something ancient, pain forged in fire, rage tempered to ice. They committed the unforgivable. Against me. Against my blood. Against the divine order. The Lord works righteousness and justice for all the oppressed. They sowed suffering for generations. I reaped it slowly, as mercy denied them quick ends. Eye for eye, but measured in months, not moments. Like Pharaoh's hardened heart, their prosperity blinded them to sin. The cotton empire built on chains demanded reckoning. She detailed the pattern, recurring illnesses baffling Dr. Hewitt, stomach ailments mimicking cholera, fevers like malaria, weakness echoing consumption. Tests on water, air, food yielded nothing. Suspicion never fell on the quiet house servant. The climax came March 10, a Sunday. Roasted chicken, herb gravy heavy with concentrated toxins accumulated over 11 months, whipped. Potatoes rich with cream, garden vegetables, James's requested peach cobbler laced thickest. The family gathered in the dining room, polished walnut table groaning under porcelain, laughter rising as Marcus carved, Catherine presiding gracefully, children chattering. Abigail watched from the doorway, shadows cloaking her form, heart pounding with the rhythm of justice long deferred. They retired content, she continued. Reading by lamplight, talking of cotton yields and social calls. I observed the first subtle shifts, yawns too deep, pallor creeping, hands pressing temples. They retired to beds. By dawn, March 11, stillness claimed the house. Marcus slumped at his study desk, quill fallen mid-entry. Catherine in their four-poster, arm outstretched toward the bell pull. Thomas halfway across his floor. Jonathan curled fetal. Elizabeth at her vanity, head on arms. Sarah in the nursery. James in his trundle bed, looking nearly asleep. For 2 days, she lingered alone. Washing bodies with reverent care, dressing them in finest linens and silks, folding hands in prayerful repose, closing lids over vacant stares. To each she whispered truths, the unforgivable acts, whippings that scarred flesh and soul, separations of families at auction, violations in the night quarters, children sold down river for profit. Justice, she told them. Revenge and justice, where does one end and God's will begin? The poison of bondage you inflicted now courses in your veins. Your legacy is tainted seed. She cleaned meticulously, scouring surfaces, burning residue bottles in the woods, erasing traces. Then she walked the oak-lined drive, past fields where enslaved hands still toiled under the sun, to the sheriff's office. I wanted a witness. A record. Even if unprovable. The dying is sown. It will finish in God's time. Dalton stared, skin prickling. The confession was too perfect, too knowledgeable. Yet impossible. He dispatched deputies Tom Crawford and Billy Mason. They rode out. Together under slanting golden light, the road winding through cotton rose white as shrouds, overseers barking orders, the air thick with dust and the low hum of spirituals sung by the bound. The mansion loomed, columns like sentinels of false piety, verandas wide enough for evening mint juleps, interior smelling of beeswax polish, pipe tobacco, and faint lavender. Smoke curled from the kitchen chimney. Laughter drifted faintly alive, disturbingly ordinary. Marcus Fairmont answered the knock, whiskey glass in hand, irritation creasing his brow. Henry? What brings you at supper hour? The family sat at table, Catherine in green silk, Thomas and Sarah side by side, Jonathan opposite, Elizabeth beside her mother, young James napkin tucked, all breathing, flushed with health or the flush of fine wine. Dalton removed his hat, turning it nervously. How to voice the accusation? Questions about staff. Abigail Turner. The room chilled instantly. Faces drained of color, surprise yielding to recognition, then raw fear. Hands tightened on forks. Catherine's throat bobbed. Elizabeth stifled a sound. James glanced wide-eyed at parents. She left 2 days ago, Marcus said guardedly. Dismissed for theft, money, jewelry. Walked out without protest. This clashed with Abigail's timeline. No theft mentioned. No dismissal. Dalton pressed on illnesses, recurring stomach woes, fevers over the year, latest for Thomas on March 12. The family exchanged loaded glances, unspoken dread passing like a current. When Dalton revealed the full confession, details matching their habits, symptoms, final meal, the fear crystallized. No laughter, no outrage. Just pallor, trembling lips, averted eyes hinting guilt. Insane, Marcus muttered unconvincingly. We're alive. But the sheriff sensed it, something unholy lingered. References from Louisiana? Hesitant, evasive. Staff interviews blocked. The family alive, yet shadows clung to them, as if Abigail's words had already marked their souls. Riding. Back through gathering dusk, fields darkening, river murmuring below, Dalton felt profound unease. Not in the confession's horror, but the Fairmonts' terror. Alive, prosperous, yet haunted. What unforgivable sin had they sown? Rape in the quarters? A child's sale? Blood on their hands mirroring the blood they spilled in fields? At the jail, Abigail sat unmoved, staring at the wall as if beholding eternity. Dalton pulled a chair close. They're alive. Healthy. You lied. Her head turned slowly. Those empty eyes pierced him. I did not lie. The poison courses in them, organs poisoned, blood tainted, legacy corrupted. Death is not always swift lightning. Sometimes a seed planted deep, growing in God's slow justice. Like the chains they forged around us, now wrapped around their spirits. Everyone dies, Sheriff. I chose the hour. The dying merely unfolds. A chill deeper than any river fog settled over Dalton. He thought of Exodus, of Pharaoh's plagues, of retribution for the oppressed. Psalm 103, the Lord works righteousness and justice for all the oppressed. Was Abigail vessel or avenger? Her hollow gaze held no redemption's light, only the haunting legacy of a system where sin poisoned master and slave alike, justice delayed but inexorable. The office clock ticked. Outside, Natchez slept under stars that had witnessed centuries of bondage. Inside, one woman's confession echoed biblical thunder: sin's wages, sown in cotton fields, reaped in shadowed blood. The Fairmonts dined that night. But somewhere, in their veins or souls, the poison whispered onward, divine, patient, unforgiving. The dying had only just begun. The iron bars of the holding cell cast elongated shadows across the sheriff's office floor, flickering in the weak glow of a single oil lamp. The air was stale, laced with the scent of damp wood and lingering tobacco from Dalton's pipe. Outside, Natchez stirred under a twilight sky, the distant hum of river traffic fading into night, steamboats unloading cargo, enslaved workers hauling bales under lantern light, the occasional hymn rising from the quarters like a plea for deliverance. Inside, time seemed suspended, trapped in the gravity of Abigail Turner's unwavering stare. She tilted her head ever so slightly, a bird-like motion, studying Dalton as if he were a fleeting curiosity in a vast, eternal scheme. "Tell me, Sheriff," she began, her voice a steady monotone that carried the weight of ancient scripture, "do you understand the subtlety of poison? Not the crude strike of a viper, but the slow seep of corruption, like sin entering the heart unnoticed." She leaned forward, chains clinking softly against the bench, her thin fingers interlaced in her lap. "Feed a body small toxins over months, and it adapts. Tolerance builds, as I told you. But deeper still, the poisons linger. They embed in liver and kidney, marrow and mind. They rewrite the flesh's sacred design, turning God's temple into a vessel of decay." Dalton shifted in his chair, the wood creaking under his weight. His badge caught the lamplight, a fleeting glint of authority amid growing unease. He had faced killers before, drunken brawlers, desperate thieves, but none like this. Her words evoked the Old Testament plagues, curses that unfolded over generations, sins of the fathers exacted upon the sons. "You speak of accumulation," he said, trying to steady his voice. "But a man can seem hale while carrying death?" "Precisely." Abigail's eyes, those bottomless voids, held no malice, only certainty. Marcus Fairmont, proud patriarch, Cotton King, sips his coffee still, unaware. The arsenic I stirred in, grain by grain, has woven into his heart's rhythm. An irregular beat, faint now, like a distant drum of judgment. In 20 years, perhaps 30, it will seize him. They'll whisper of natural causes, heart failure in his sleep. But it will be my hand, extended through time, fulfilling the Lord's decree, the soul who sins shall die. Ezekiel's words, Sheriff. His empire built on broken backs demands payment. She continued without pause, her narration unfolding like a litany of woes, each detail vivid, cinematic in its precision. Dalton envisioned Marcus in his study, broad shoulders hunched over ledgers tallying enslaved lives as profit, the morning sun slanting through lace curtains, steam rising from his china cup tainted with invisible death. The room would smell of ink and polished oak, the faint bitterness of coffee masking the metallic tang of poison. Catherine, his wife, Abigail went on, elegant in her silks, presiding over teas and social calls. "The water hemlock I infused in her bedtime drafts has crossed into her brain, subtle compounds burrowing like thorns in the Garden of Eden. In a few years, episodes will emerge, paranoia shadowing her thoughts, hallucinations of accusing spirits, mood swings violent as Cain's rage. They'll deem her mad, lock her in some asylum's cold cell, whispering of female hysteria. But it's the toxin, my careful measure, unraveling her mind as retribution for her complicity in sins unspoken." Dalton's stomach churned. He pictured Catherine in the mansion's parlor, candlelight dancing on crystal decanters, her laughter echoing hollow as she entertained Natchez's elite planters' wives in crinoline gowns, gossiping over mint juleps while the quarters hummed with muffled suffering. The hemlock's legacy, visions of chained ghosts haunting her nights, driving her to claw at invisible chains. "Stop this," Dalton interjected, his hand slamming the desk. The lamp flame jumped, shadows leaping across Abigail's impassive face. But she pressed on, relentless as the Mississippi's current. Thomas, the heir apparent, studying law by lamplight. Pokeweed's legacy gnaws his nerves, muscles twitching unseen, destined to waste. By 35, crippled, confined to a chair, his ambitions dust. Jonathan bears cellular scars blooming into tumors, lumps swelling like forbidden fruit. Elizabeth delicate flower dosed with autumn crocus, her senses dulled. Touch numbed, emotions faded, a living ghost in her own skin, echoing the emptiness of a soul severed from grace. The cell grew colder, as if her words summoned a spiritual chill. Dalton felt it, a haunting undertone of divine justice, biblical echoes of Deuteronomy's curses. Your sons and daughters shall be given to another people, while your eyes look on and fail with longing for them all day long. Abigail's poisons weren't mere chemistry, they symbolized the plantation's moral rot, slavery's venom seeping back into the master's veins. Sarah, Thomas's young bride, Abigail continued, her tone softening imperceptibly, dreams of motherhood shattered. Her womb scarred, barren as the salted earth of Sodom. Miscarriages will mark her days, each loss a echo of stolen children from the quarters. And young James. Here, for the first time, a flicker crossed her face, not remorse, but a profound sorrow, like Mary's lament at the cross. The child. Innocent yet heir to Fairmont blood. Hardest to dose, yet necessary. He'll endure longest chronic ailments, early graying, frailty. His own offspring tainted, trace poisons in their blood, the line withering generation by generation, like the cursed fig tree, fruitless and doomed. Dalton rose, pacing the narrow space before the cell. The floorboards groaned under his boots, echoing his turmoil. Madness, he muttered. You can't foresee such futures. Poisons don't prophesy. Her smile emerged then, thin, unsettling, lips curving without warmth, eyes remaining voids. It chilled him deeper than any winter fog off the river. I've studied the arts of venom for years, hidden in shadows, learning from herb women in the swamps, apothecaries' tomes smuggled from New Orleans. Each substance chosen deliberately, arsenic for the heart's betrayal, hemlock for the mind's deception, crocus for the soul's numbness. I architected their ends as meticulously as God framed the world in 7 days. The foundation is laid, time erodes the facade. Like the parable of the sower, seeds of destruction planted in fertile soil of their sins. Why? Dalton demanded, voice raw, fists clenched. What unforgivable act drove this? What did they do? The smile vanished, emptiness reclaiming her gaze. Ask them. Though truth flees the lips of the proud. They bury their transgressions beneath cotton fortunes, pretending piety while graves multiply. Bodies rot under their verandas, spirits cry for justice. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But sometimes, he uses vessels like me. She turned away, fixing her stare on the blank wall, as if communing with unseen witnesses. Dalton pressed, pleaded, threatened, no response. Silence enveloped the cell, heavy as Judgment Day. The next dawn broke over Natchez, painting the bluffs in hues of blood and gold. Dalton, eyes gritty from sleepless hours, dispatched telegrams to Louisiana, inquiring after the Beaumont family Marcus had cited as Abigail's reference. He pored over county records in the courthouse basement, dusty ledgers smelling of mildew and old ink, chronicling births, marriages, sales of property and people. No trace of Abigail Turner. No birth certificate in Mississippi or adjoining states, no manumission papers, no prior employments. She emerged in April 1837 at Fairmont's gates, a phantom materialized from the ether, like a biblical avenger sent to Pharaoh's court. This void unnerved him. In 1838's antebellum South, identities were chained to papers, bills of sale for the enslaved, certificates for the free. Freed blacks carried freedom papers, vigilantly guarded against kidnappers. Yet Abigail? Nothing. As if divine hand had placed her, unmarked, for a purpose. Frustrated, Dalton saddled his horse and rode back to Fairmont Plantation. Mist clung to the oak-lined drive, dew glistening on cotton bolls like tears unshed. He arrived pre-dawn, skirting the main house for the detached kitchen, a squat brick structure, walkway roofed against rain, designed to isolate heat and odors from the mansion's refined air. Smoke curled from the chimney, carrying scents of baking bread and frying bacon. Inside, figures moved in the pre-dawn gloom, lanterns casting warm pools amid shadows. He rapped on the doorframe. Sheriff Dalton. Need a word with the staff. A young woman emerged, Ruth, perhaps 20, flour-dusted apron over calico dress, intelligent eyes wide with startlement, then wariness. Her skin glowed in the lantern light, calloused hands wiping on her skirt. Sheriff? Trouble? No trouble. Questions about Abigail Turner. Fear flashed across Ruth's face, raw and immediate. She glanced back into the kitchen, pots simmering on the iron stove, herbs hanging in bundles from rafters, the air thick with sage and onion. Stepping outside, she pulled the door ajar, voice hushed. That woman wasn't right. Moved like a shadow, eyes always watching, calculating. Like she saw souls, not bodies. How long here? April last. Mistress hired her quick, no consult. Just appeared, started work. From where? Ruth shook her head, braids swaying. Never said. Silent as tombs. Did chores, then vanished, quiet as spirits. Turn round, she's gone, turn back, behind you, no sound. Scared us plenty. Friends among staff? No one dared close. Felt unnatural. Like she carried something heavy, divine or damned. Dalton nodded, sensing the spiritual undercurrent Abigail as harbinger, echoing biblical figures like the Witch of Endor or avenging angels. The family's illnesses? Started after her arrival? Ruth bit her lip, eyes troubled. Yes. Thomas first, 3 weeks in. Then others. Dr. Hewitt here constant, like a resident ghost. Did Abigail tend them? Oh, yes. Attentive, especially in sickness. Mistress praised her devotion. But I... Ruth trailed off, shivering despite the morning warmth. What? One night, late August, heat thick as molasses, I returned for forgotten linen. Abigail in the herb pantry, mixing in a bowl. Saw me, blocked the view quick. Said it was Dr. Hewitt's remedy. But her eyes, cold warning. I fled. August, 4 months into Abigail's tenure, deep in her confessed campaign. Dalton pictured the scene, moonlight filtering through pantry slats, Abigail's hands grinding roots, the mortar's rhythmic scrape like a dirge. Scents of bitter herbs mingling with the night's jasmine. Ruth, Dalton pressed gently, know a Hannah? Color fled her cheeks, eyes widening like saucers. How you know Hannah? Tell me. Ruth scanned the yard overseer's cabin's dark, field silent save for dawn birds. Tears glistened. Hannah, my friend. Kindest soul. Worked here from girlhood. Died last March, weeks before Abigail came. How? Sick. Wasted away. Buried out back, in the plot. Dalton detected evasion, the averted gaze of one burdened. Truth, Ruth. Important. Can't. If they knew I spoke, please, Sheriff. One thing, Abigail know Hannah? Ruth's eyes met his, pain swirling with guilt. Hannah had a sister older, sold away young. Hannah wondered after her, prayed for her safe. Then Hannah dies. Weeks later, Abigail arrives. I thought, maybe she's the sister, returned. But impossible. How'd she know? And why silent? Unless, Dalton murmured, she learned Hannah's fate. And why? Ruth's nod was subtle, confirmation of darkness unspoken, perhaps violation, whipping to death, a sickness masking murder. Before more, voices stirred from the house, family rousing. Go, Ruth urged. Master finds you. Dalton mounted, mind ablaze. Hannah, sister sold. Death shrouded. Abigail, phantom avenger. Connections formed a chilling mosaic, spiritual retribution for slavery's atrocities, families torn, bodies broken, souls commodified. Like Exodus plagues on Egypt, Fairmont's sins invited curses. Midday found Dalton at Dr. Samuel Hewitt's office above the Mercantile on Main Street. Stairs creaked to a realm of medical arcana, shelves lined with leather tomes, glass jars of preserved specimens floating in amber fluid, air sharp with carbolic and ether. Hewitt, 50s, bespectacled, scholarly thin, looked up from his desk, quill pausing mid-note. Henry? Illness? No. Fairmont's records. Their year of sickness. Hewitt frowned, pushing specs up. Confidential. A confession of poisoning. Timeline check. Pallor claimed Hewitt's face. Poisoning? But they're well now. Tell me. Hewitt retrieved a ledger, pages dense with script. May 1, 1837, Thomas, cramps, fever. Laudanum, rest. Recovered. Then Catherine, 2 weeks on. Similar. Jonathan, June, Marcus, July, Elizabeth, August. Symptoms: pain, nausea, fever, weakness. 3 to 5 days, resolve. Frequency? Escalated. Autumn, weekly. Winter, constant. Supplies at estate. Tested water, food, air, nothing. Then? Stopped 2 weeks back. Last, Thomas, March 12. Vanished. March 12, post Abigail's final dose, her dismissal day. Dalton presented his notes, Abigail's poison list. These, dosed, gradually match symptoms? Hewitt scanned: pokeweed, snakeroot, oleander, hemlock, crocus, arsenic. God, yes. Exact fit. Tolerance masks increasing damage. Permanent? Delayed? Hewitt rubbed eyes. Arsenic, heart, bones. Plants, nerves, organs, cells. Autumn crocus, division disruption. Possible damage latent, manifesting years on. Victims healthy now, but doomed. Proof? Impossible without exhumation. Compounds degrade. Circumstantial. Unless, Hewitt added, deaths align later. Pattern as evidence. Dalton chilled: crime spanning time, murder unfinished. Biblical slow burn. The wicked shall be turned into hell. Back at his office, Dalton arrayed documents: Hewitt's ledger, confession notes, Ruth's words. Correlations screened, timeline synced, symptoms mirrored poisons. He drafted a report, quill flying, ink staining fingers, record for posterity, witness to potential divine justice veiled as human vengeance. The Fairmonts lived, but shadows lengthened. In their blood, a curse pulsed, legacy of sin reaping its harvest. The midnight oil lamp sputtered low in Dalton's office, casting jittery shadows across stacks of parchment and ink-stained quills. The air hung thick with the scent of sealing wax and aged paper, mingled with the faint, acrid bite of gunpowder from his nearby revolver. Outside, Natchez slumbered under a canopy of stars, the Mississippi's distant murmur a constant undercurrent, like the inexorable flow of time and justice deferred. Dalton's hand cramped, fingers numb from hours of scripting his report, 20 pages of meticulous detail, each line a thread weaving Abigail's confession, Hewitt's medical logs, Ruth's hushed testimony, and his own gnawing suspicions into a tapestry of potential truth. He sealed the folder, locked it in his desk's iron-bound drawer, and trudged home through fog-shrouded streets, his boots echoing on cobblestones slick with dew. Sleep came fitful, haunted by empty eyes and whispered poisons. Dawn broke gray and heavy the next morning, the sun struggling through river mists that clung to the bluffs like reluctant spirits. Dalton entered his office, the door creaking on rusty hinges, the room still carrying the chill of night. He unlocked the drawer with habitual motion, only to stare into emptiness. The folder, gone. Not scattered, not rifled, surgically extracted. Petty cash intact in its box, weapons cabinet undisturbed, other files untouched. This was no opportunistic thief, this was precision, purpose. A violation of sanctuary, echoing the biblical theft of birthrights, where Esau's hunger cost him eternity. Dalton's stomach knotted, a cold dread seeping in like arsenic through veins. The Fairmonts. Who else possessed motive and means? Marcus's influence stretched like cotton roots through Natchez's soil, planters, judges, silent allies in a system where justice bent to wealth and whiteness. But burglary of the sheriff's sanctum? A felony, even for kings of cotton. Unless desperation clawed deeper, unless Hannah's ghost, or whatever sin she embodied, threatened their empire's foundations. Dalton bolted from the office, hat askew, horse saddled in haste. He rode to Hewitt's quarters above the mercantile, stairs groaning under urgent steps. The doctor, mid-morning tea, startled at the pounding door. Henry? What's amiss? Your Fairmont records. Check them. Now. Hewitt, brows furrowed, unlocked his cabinet drawers of labeled folders, scents of dried herbs and ether wafting out. Fingers flipped, paused, searched again. Pallor drained his face. Gone. Vanished. As mine were. Stolen last night. Everything tied to Abigail. Hewitt sank into his chair, spectacles slipping. The Fairmonts, burying evidence. Can you rebuild? Dates, symptoms? Fragments, yes. But precision? Memory fades like scripture misquoted. Courts dismiss recollection as unreliable shadow. Dalton paced, boots thudding on worn floorboards. They're erasing it. Victims hiding their own poisoning? Why? The question hung like incense in a confessional. Fairmonts should clamor for vengeance, not silence. Unless the poison's root, Abigail's unforgivable, mirrored their own crimes. Hannah, Dalton murmured. He recounted Ruth's whispers, the young servant's death, March 1837, the sold-away sister, fear thick as swamp fog. Hewitt leaned forward, eyes sharp. You suspect murder? Disguised as illness? Something vile enough for Abigail's return. Ruth knows. And the Fairmonts know she knows. Her terror biblical, like David's pursuit of witnesses to his sins. What now? Find Ruth. Extract the truth. Document it beyond their reach in my blood if need be. But Ruth had evaporated like morning mist. At Fairmont Plantation that afternoon, the oak drive loomed oppressive, branches arching like judgmental arches. Servants averted eyes, the overseer barked denials. Marcus emerged on the veranda, whiskey in hand, voice smooth as oiled cotton gin. Ruth? Dismissed this morn. Theft, you see. Items vanishing, money, trinkets. Others? Irrelevant to law, sheriff. A confession of attempted murder on your kin. All relevant. Marcus's gaze hardened, shadows pooling under his eyes. Enough. Abigail's mad ravings. Case closed. Leave, sans warrant. Dalton mounted, fury simmering. No grounds without files, victims alive, uncooperative. Yet their desperation screamed guilt, like Cain's mark burning brighter with concealment. 2 days scoured Natchez, plantations queried for hires, markets canvassed amid haggling vendors and chained auctions, churches probed where hymns masked despair, boarding houses searched with their creaking porches and whispered freedoms. Ruth, nowhere. Vanished as Abigail had appeared, a spectral symmetry. On the third day, amid Main Street's bustle, carriages clattering, merchants hawking wares, the acrid tang of blacksmith forges, a young black man approached, cap low, glances darting like hunted prey. Sheriff? Seek in Ruth? Yes. Where? This. A folded paper thrust into Dalton's palm. Said important. You'd understand. He melted into the crowd, a shadow fleeing light. Dalton unfolded it under an awning, away from prying eyes. Crude script, but clear as revelation. Sheriff, can't stay. They warned talk of Hannah, end like her. Headin' north, Memphis kin. But truth must live. Someone remember. Hannah, 17, beautiful, kind. Didn't deserve. Fairmont men Marcus, Thomas, Jonathan used her. All three. She begged Mistress Catherine help. Called liar, troublemaker. Pregnant. Unknown father, too scared name. They gave medicine, fix problem. But wrong. Destroyed inside. Bled endless. Pain, agony. Dr. Hewitt came, clueless. Thought illness. Died 3 weeks, slow torture. Buried quick, back plot. Wooden marker, no full name. We whispered tell authorities, but us versus them? No proof. End bad. Then Abigail. Never claimed sister, but same eyes, Grace. Asked quiet. We told. She stayed. Thought mornin'. Not till poison talk understood. Late kitchen mixes, watchin' meals, satisfaction at sickness. Killed slow, like Hannah suffered. We silent. Part thought deserved. Still do. Sorry runnin'. Safety first. Fairmonts won't allow diggin'. But you know what they did, why Abigail? Murder? Justice? Between. Hannah deserved better. Fairmont's worse. Ruth. Dalton read thrice, heart pounding amid street clamor. The missing verse, rape, repeated violation in shadowed quarters, pregnancy shame forced upon the innocent. Medicine abortifacient turned lethal, botched poison echoing Abigail's craft. Hannah's slow bleed, 3 weeks of torment, buried nameless like discarded chattel. Biblical horror, Tamar's violation by Amnon, unavenged, or the Levite's concubine, dismembered for justice. Fairmonts, sinners cloaked in respectability, their empire stained with blood guilt. Abigail, sold child, freed somehow, perhaps manumission, escaped north, returned phantom. Too late for salvation, but for reckoning. Her poisons, mirror to Hannah's medicine, accumulating death, slow suffering. Retribution's poetry, eye for eye, but drawn over months, years. Horrific. Yet a chilling equity in a land where law shielded masters, damned the enslaved. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, but Abigail wielded his sword. Dalton pocketed the letter, close to his heart. Untouchable now. No exhumation possible, Hannah's grave unmarked, body decayed. No prosecution, 1838 Mississippi viewed slaves as property, abuse, even lethal, rarely punished. Justice? A mirage for the oppressed. Abigail knew, hence her path. Now, her fate, commitment hastened, like sweeping dust under verandas. Within a week, hearings convened in the courthouse wood-paneled, air heavy with tobacco and tension. 3 physicians testified, delusional, fixed beliefs, emotional void. Dangerous, indefinite asylum. No mention of illnesses, timelines. Predetermined, greased by Fairmont gold. Abigail sat statue still, chains loose, eyes abyssal. Marcus and Catherine observed from rear benches, faces masks of piety. Judge's gavel fell, papers signed. Guards led her out. Dalton intercepted, but barred. Their eyes met, his pleading remembrance. Hers, blank. Then, whisper faint as breath, 23 years. It starts then. Remember 23. Gone to Jackson's asylum, cells of despair, treatments of chains and isolation. Dalton lingered in empty court, echoes fading. 1838 plus 23, 1861. Poison's bloom? Or prophetic? He journaled at home hidden, safe from thieves. I'll remember. Document. When fruition comes, record endures. Years rolled like the river, relentless. Dalton sheriffed on brawls quelled, thefts probed, hangings witnessed. But eyes on Fairmont's, journal chronicling. At first, prosperity mocked, illnesses vanished post-Abigail. Social whirl resumed balls under chandeliers, cotton yields boasted. Yet subtleties, Marcus's tremor in idle hands, like Judas's silver shake. Catherine's withdrawal, parties forsaken, gaze distant as if ghosts whispered. 1842, Thomas faltered. Hands quivered over law tomes, spasms rippling. Weakness chained his steps. Hewitt confided, nervous decay, systematic. Brain muscle bonds fraying. Chronic poisons echo? Possible. Delayed, accumulated. By 1846, wheelchair-bound, 1848, bedridden, eyes alone mobile, mind imprisoned in failing flesh. Death at 29, paralyzed vigil. Dalton noted, Abigail's pokeweed prophecy, muscles wasting, 10 years post-confession. Coincidence? Or design? Elizabeth wed 1845, Louisiana bound. Letters eerie, disconnected, emotions numb, sensations lost. Fading ghost. Marriage annulled, unresponsive. Returned 1847, spectral on grounds, face blank, eyes void, mirroring Abigail. died 1851, 26, failure to thrive. Living death, autumn crocus's curse, nerves dulled, soul severed. Matched prediction. Gradual emptiness. Catherine, 1849, paranoia bloomed. Screams rent nights, watchers. Harm bringers. Hall wanderings, dialogues with voids. Servants murmured, talks to Hannah, judging, terrified. Irony divine, denier haunted by denied. Guilt? Hemlock's brain rot? Both. Committed 1852, private hell. Died 1854, 54, raving of shadows. Water Hemlock's legacy, madness as retribution. Jonathan, 1,853 tumors. Throat swelled, dismissed, then rampant. Hewitt, cancer, aggressive spread. Death in months, 31 choked, starved. Dalton chronicled each, spiritual chill deepening. Fairmont sins reaped bodies as fields sown with tares, harvest bitter. Biblical, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Abigail's hand, or God's? The tumors ravaged Jonathan Fairmont like a biblical scourge, swelling from his throat outward, relentless as the locusts of Exodus. In 1853, what began as a persistent cough escalated into grotesque lumps, pressing against his windpipe, distorting his once handsome features into a mask of suffering. The air in his bedroom grew thick with the metallic scent of blood-tinged sputum, mingled with the sharp odor of laudanum Dr. Hewitt administered in futile doses. Jonathan's gasps echoed through the mansion's halls, now dimmer, dustier, as servants whispered prayers in the shadows. Hewitt, probing with cold instruments under flickering candlelight, shook his head, cancer, voracious. Spread like wildfire through tainted soil. By year's end, Jonathan lay emaciated, unable to swallow even broth, his body a battlefield of cellular betrayal. He died at 31, alone in the pre-dawn hush, eyes wide with unspoken terror. Dalton chronicled it in his journal, while scratching parchment by lamplight in his modest office. The entry, cellular damage, as Abigail foretold. Poisons weaving chaos at life's core, manifesting tumors years later. How did she know? Apothecary's lore, or divine insight into sin's harvest? 5 Fairmonts fallen within 16 years, each demise a chilling echo of her confession. The family's grand portraits, once gleaming in gilded frames, now gathered dust in the attic, their painted eyes seeming to follow visitors with accusatory stares. Sarah, Thomas's widow, lingered at the estate like a ghost in mourning weeds. Her remarriage in 1850 promised renewal, a sturdy planter from Vicksburg, vows exchanged under magnolia blossoms heavy with scent. Yet pregnancy after pregnancy betrayed her. For times her belly swelled with hope, only to convulse in agony, expelling malformed remnants amid screams that pierced the night. Hewitt confided to Dalton over whiskey in the doctor's cluttered study, shelves lined with specimen jars glowing amber in gaslight, the fetuses, twisted, incomplete. As if creation itself rebelled, interfered at the cellular genesis. Sarah's chambers reeked of blood and herbal poultices, her face paling to parchment, eyes hollowed by grief. In 1857, the 5th miscarriage claimed her, hemorrhage unrelenting, sheets soaked crimson, her final whispers a plea for mercy. Abigail's prophecy, womb scarred irreparably, barren as salted earth. 6 souls claimed, their graves clustering in the family plot, wild vines encroaching like fingers of judgment. Marcus Fairmont, once the towering patriarch, withered under the weight. His broad frame stooped, hair silvered prematurely, skin sallow as aged cotton. The plantation mirrored his decay, fields fallow under relentless sun, overseers fleeing amid whispers of curses, the mansion's white columns peeling like shedding sins. In his mid-60s, cardiac woes struck, palpitations thundering like divine thunder, chest pains stabbing like thorns from Christ's crown. Hewitt's stethoscope pressed to his barrel chest, heart muscle frayed, rhythm chaotic. Could seize any moment. Marcus clutched his Bible in trembling hands, pages worn at psalms of repentance, yet his eyes darted to shadows, as if expecting spectral accusers. He perished in 1868 at 67, slumped in his study, mahogany desk scattered with unpaid ledgers, the same room Abigail had envisioned his corpse decades prior. Dawn light filtered through grimy panes, illuminating his contorted face, hand frozen mid-clutch at his breast. Dalton noted the irony. Arsenic's legacy, embedded in cardiac tissue, fulfilling her words. off by mere years, but exact in essence. 7 now interred. Only James endures. 23 years since Abigail's confession, 1861 dawned amid national fracture. South Carolina seceded in December 1860, Mississippi in January, cannons roaring at Fort Sumter by April. Natchez churned with chaos, enlistments and fevered rallies, cotton markets collapsing, enslaved whispers of jubilee turning to uprisings. Amid this, word reached Dalton, the Mississippi State Lunatic Asylum in Jackson ablaze. Flames devoured wings, records room reduced to ash, patient histories vanishing like smoke signals of forgotten souls. He journeyed to Jackson, badge granting entry through charred gates. The air stank of soot and despair, survivors wandering like lost prophets. The new administrator, crisp and starched collar, rifled surviving ledgers, no Abigail Turner. Files from 38? Likely cinders. Dalton presented copied commitment papers, ink faded but resolute. The man shrugged, official, yet unverified. Perhaps deceased, transferred, records lax then. Forgotten, as many are. Departing through rubble-strewn halls, an elderly orderly, face etched like ancient bark, halted him. Abigail? Empty-eyed, arrived 38. Sat staring, waiting eternal. She vanished after 3 years, cell ajar, no trace. Randall hushed it, fake death, waited grave empty. Rumors, sightings round Delta, thin specter with void gaze. Dalton murmured, 23 years. She bade remember. The orderly nodded, waited for fruition. Reckon it's here, her vigil ends. Unsettled, Dalton pondered, Abigail's orchestration? Confession, commitment, escape, all scripted like a divine play? Coincidence strained belief, her prophecies unfolded too precisely. James Fairmont outlasted kin, as foretold, but existence was torment. Inheriting ruins post Marcus, amid war's devastation, fields scorched, economy shattered by emancipation. Reconstruction's tumult, freedmen claiming wages, taxes gnawing remnants. James, frail from youth, managed with labored breaths, his study lit by sputtering lamps, ledgers blurring through rheumy eyes. Married twice, first wife succumbed to fever in 65, second to consumption in 72. 5 offspring, 3 perished infantile, gasping in cradles scented with camphor, 2 faltered young, frail frames yielding to unnamed plagues. The line withered like the cursed vine of Isaiah, fruitless branches snapping. In his 40s, ailments besieged, lungs wheezing like bellows in damp fog, bowels rebelling, joints grinding bone on bone. Hewitt, aged but vigilant, body eroding, fundamental flaw accelerating. His seed tainted, children born weakened, as if blood carries venom. Dalton queried, hereditary poison? Trace toxins transmitted? Possible. Science murmurs of such accumulated in youth, past paternal. Extraordinary, if true. James faded to spectral at 50, resembling 70, skin parchment thin, hands gnarled as roots. Died 1891 at 60, alone in the crumbling mansion, heart finally yielding. Estate auctioned piecemeal, house razed, fields partitioned, Fairmont name dissolving like mist. Graves overgrown, save Hannah's tended mysteriously, wildflowers blooming perennial. Dalton retired 1873 at 75, mind keen amid bodily frailty. Relocated to a bluff-edge cottage, river views eternal. Journal swelled to 3 volumes, timelines, medical scraps, testimonies, sightings. Rumors persisted, Abigail glimpsed in bayous, empty eyes piercing veils. 1875, cemetery whisper, a woman at Hannah's plot, marker scrubbed, weeds cleared, flowers planted, pokeweed, snakeroot, oleander nodding in breeze. Dalton visited, earth fresh turned, stone etched clear, Hannah, died April 3, 1837. Beloved. He knelt, knees protesting gravel, she remembered, avenged. Rest now, child. Justice? Revenge? Blurred as river fog. Tucked at stone's base, yellowed paper, script Abigail's. Dalton unfolded, trembling. Sheriff Dalton. If reading, you remembered. Kept record. Truth unburied. Thank you. Yes, poisoned them. Confession true, misunderstood. Toxins built slow damage. Foundational, manifesting delayed. Deaths woven into flesh, blood. Confessed early? Wanted witness pre-erasure. New thefts, silences. Saw in you, truth's guardian. Asylum, allowed, needed vanishing. Escape, routines exploited. Decades watching, ensuring fulfillments. Visited each pre-end, reminded Hannah's torment, their sins. Marcus, 3 days prior, study where he violated her. Recognized me. Did she suffer? Yes, I said. Now you know. Died clutching guilt or poison matters not. Each faced truth, justice served, unrecognized by law. James last suffered living. Work done. Line extinct, as they extinguished Hannah. Regret? Complex. No for avenging sister, she deserved champion. But child James, wait eternal. Yet redo, law failed, someone must. You documented. Part of judgment, testimony Hannah mattered. By this, I'm gone. Old, tired, ready rest. Hannah avenged. Truth preserved. Hope enough. Hope she peaceful. Abigail Turner. Tears traced Dalton's cheeks. Pocketed beside Ruth's letter, kept relics. Truth, murder methodical, 50-year span. Justice for Hannah, unprosecutable in slavery's shadow. Both? Morality's gray realm. Homeward, he appended, truth complete. Leave to conscience. Hannah suffered unjustly. Abigail remembered, revenged. Fairmonts sinned, paid. Outside law, morality, revenge, justice blurred. History judge. Done. Dalton passed 1876 at 78. Daughter discovered journals, horror, fascination. Spared flames, donated Mississippi Historical Society. Father's case record. Preserve, though unlikely. Archived decades, researchers skim, dismiss obsession. Footnote, lawman's fixation on madwoman's tale. Yet records endure, confession, investigations, deaths aligning eerily. Fairmonts erased, graves neglected. Hannah's maintained, tours noting servant burial, full story untold. Truth's ambiguous, poison or conscience? Murder or avenger? Abigail, killer or divine instrument? Unanswered, in volumes, empty graves, Hannah's marker. Intended enigma, confession true, unprovable. Space where justice murder indistinguish. Something transpired, family destroyed, motion from poisons, conviction. Real or coincidence? Fairmont's dead, as predicted. Fact undeniable, archived, confronting implications.